Hello, and welcome to the AWS Partner Webinar Series, where our topic today features smart solutions for enterprise cloud storage on Amazon Web Services. My name is Sherry Sullivan. I'm your host today. I am out of Seattle, out of the marketing group. I have a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. I'd like to remind folks that we are recording today's session. We invite you to submit questions at any time during this webinar. We'll take some time for Q&A at the end as time allows. And I'd also like to let you know that we will be making this content available. If we get asked for that question, we'll put it up on our AWS YouTube channel as well as SlideShare. We've got a great lineup for you today. We have two experts who focus on enterprise cloud storage. We'll begin our session with John Downey, who's a business development manager here at AWS who focuses on cloud storage solutions. John will provide you with a quick overview of AWS and some of the benefits of managing your enterprise storage solutions. And we're also pleased today to have our technology partner, Leo Leung, who's VP of Product at Oxygen Cloud. And Leo will provide us with an overview of Oxygen Cloud's solutions, as well as how customers are deploying and storing and accessing their corporate content on Oxygen Cloud and AWS today. So without further delay, I'd like to introduce you to John Downey with AWS. Take it away, John.
Hey, Sherry. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you who may be around the world. Appreciate your time joining this webinar today. My name is John Downey. I'm a business development manager with AWS's storage portfolio of solutions. I primarily focus on customers that own and operate data centers that have internal storage operations. What is our message to those customers? What are the technology parts and pieces that enable a federated/hybrid storage environment? What are the financial business operational benefits? And what is the associated TCO and ROI? So we have a nice package of solutions that we offer these customers that enable the benefits of a federated hybrid storage cloud architecture. What I'd like to do is talk a little bit about where Amazon is in the market, just to open things. We have hundreds of thousands of customers spanning over 190 countries. We have a variety of startups on us, such as Dropbox, Pinterest, Instagram, Spotify. We have a wide variety of enterprise customers, such as Samsung, Shell, Hitachi, Pfizer, NASDAQ, the list goes on and on, as well as 300 different government agencies operating on us around the world with highly sensitive data sets, as well as in excess of 1,500 different academic institutions. One of the reasons for this massive growth and adoption from a customer perspective is this fantastic ecosystem of partners that we have. We're talking like systems integrators such as Capgemini, Booz Allen Hamilton, Accenture, and the likes. So a very large ecosystem there, to different distribution partners and VARs, as well as a phenomenal list of ISV independent software ecosystem vendors. Oxygen Cloud is one of our leading technologies as it relates to private enterprise file synchronization. They're certainly in our ISV ecosystem. So with this group, we've been able to really inject a lot of energy into the flywheel that is Amazon Web Services. And you can see that there's significant analyst recognition in this slide where we've been doing this for 6.5 years. We started in 2006. We're about 60% market share for infrastructure as a service. We're all the way to the upper right in Gartner's 2012 Magic Quadrant, as well as part of the upper right in Forrester's Hadoop Wave as well. And this slide is interesting because we've collected data from our customers, what they've cited as the top reasons that they've adopted the cloud. These are not the 6 reasons the AWS is putting out. These are the top reasons that we've learned from our customers. And the first one is being able to trade capital expenditure for variable expense. the ability to no longer have to outlay tremendous amounts of capital, deal with the cost of capital in order to purchase infrastructure that you really don't know exactly how will be used, could be under-provisioned, could be over-provisioned, and instead you can tightly couple your actual usage with the capacity and only pay for what you use, which is very appealing to a lot of customers. The second thing that customers tell us is that they end up paying lower variable expense with AWS in the cloud than they do on-premise in their own data centers. And the reason for this is Amazon's tremendous economies of scale, where we end up gaining more customers, we build out more footprint, our costs go down, and we continue to pass those savings on to customers in the form of discounts, of which we've done 27 discounts to date, if I'm correct. The storage platform has actually had 4 discounts to date since it's come out. Moving on to elastic capacity, the other piece that our customers tell us is that they really like the fact that they no longer have to guess on how much capacity to build out. We all know that if you deploy an application early, that there may be a lag time where there's wasted resources and capital, and then the application may take off, and it may be under-provisioned, and then you have to scramble to find resources. That whole story goes away with AWS, again, as you can tightly couple your actual demand with capacity. From a speed and agility perspective, our customers' ability to quickly roll out new applications to market is dramatically cut down. Your ability to stand up entire environments, roll out hundreds of servers, even thousands of servers can be done in minutes instead of weeks or months. One of our customers, a really cool story, for example, they wanted to stand up an HPC cluster to do in-house genetic sequencing, and instead of standing up this cluster and spending millions of dollars and queuing up lots of jobs that we backlogged and spending months running these jobs, they were able to instead send the data into AWS, spin up 50,000 cores, run the job, which I believe took 3 or 4 hours, spin down the cores when it was done. They got the result after 4 hours, paid roughly $13,000. So a very powerful story as it relates to speed and agility. From a focusing on the business perspective, internal software developers within the enterprise are a highly sought-after resource. They're oftentimes used to help marry application layers to the network and other IT systems. And when customers leverage AWS, you can free those resources up, those application developers, to focus on more business-forward, revenue-generating opportunities instead of undifferentiated IT heavy lifting. And the final and sixth thing that we hear is our customers, startups and enterprise alike, they like to be able to launch and bring to market high-quality, low-latency, worldwide applications. If you think about how to do this using existing and more legacy technology solutions, you have to consider where you're going to stand up your footprint, what types of technologies you're going to use. You got to layer in LAN acceleration technologies. If you're doing content management systems all over the world, this gets extremely challenging. Versus with Amazon, we have 9 regions around the world. We're able to enable our customers to stand up these worldwide locations quickly and efficiently. It's a very powerful story. So switching gears a little bit, I just wanted to give a high-level view of what is the AWS platform. I'm not going to go through each one of these parts and pieces, but what I'd like to do is illustrate really what we are from a bird's eye view. The bottom 2 bars, the AWS Global Infrastructure bar, and then the bar above that says regions, availability zones, and edge locations is our physical footprint, which I will talk more about in the next slide. The foundational services layer is really our infrastructure as a service stack. That's sort of the bread and butter that everyone's very familiar with. And that comes in the form of compute, which is EC2, storage, database, and networking technologies. One layer up above that, you have what we call application services. I view them as decoupled application developer components. So, for example, you'll see that one of the solutions in there is called Cloud Search. So if there's a new application, a new web app, for example, that a developer may be standing up, instead of purchasing or developing the search component yourself, you can actually take our SDK from our cloud search technology, implement it into your application, and then we become the back-end index and search engine regardless of where that application physically resides. So that's really what we are. We are infrastructure as a service in the form of compute, storage, database, and network, and we are these decoupled application developer components. And at a very high level, that is what AWS is. The top bar, which shows monitoring, administration, management, professional services, and support, should really be going down the side because it extends really all these other parts and pieces. So we are those two things at a high level, and they're all individual, decoupled, atomic-level solutions that don't do anything on their own. They need to be stitched together. We need applications like Oxygen Cloud, for example, to plug into them, which the Oxygen plugs into S3. So that's kind of how Amazon works. So that's part of the reason that we have this large ecosystem of systems integrators and a variety of partners. From a global footprint perspective, you'll see these gold boxes. These are where our regions are. We have two regions in Oregon. One is our Gulf Cloud, which has ITAR and FISMA compliance for our public sector customers. We have another standard cloud in Oregon, one in Northern California, Northern Virginia, Sao Paulo, Ireland, Singapore, Tokyo, and our newest, which is the Sydney, New Zealand area as of a couple months ago. Within those regions, we have a concept called availability zones, which I will show you on this slide. Availability zones are essentially clusters of data centers. So you have a region, you have AZs or availability zones. The AZs are all connected on high-speed private fiber. They're anywhere from 5 to 25 miles apart from one another. They're on different floodplains. You have redundant power. You have multiple ISPs. And within those availability zones, you have clusters of data centers. And the scale of an individual data center is mind-boggling, to say the least. So this is a kind of a high-level view of what's under the covers. And when you look at systems like S3 or systems that have API connectivity, S3 and certain databases, these are distributed storage solutions, right? So they're distributed object stores that span this entire region. And we redundantly store the data across these regions so that all you look at is your gigabytes consumed per month, but we're the ones doing all the high availability and geo-replication on the back end, and you no longer have to worry about that. So Amazon S3 is an 11 nines platform. That means that we can lose 2 data centers simultaneously within a region, and you don't see a blip on the screen from a performance perspective on S3. It also means that with every 10,000 objects that you store, you can expect to lose 1 every 10 million years. So I'm going to pivot into the storage discussion. From a storage perspective, there's, on-prem data storage solutions can be complex, expensive, cumbersome, and oftentimes unreliable. Oftentimes you'll see customers that have replicated SAN systems, so primary data center, secondary data center, and they'll replicate SAN systems. They'll do the same thing for NAS, primary NAS replicated to a secondary NAS. And then you have backup software that backs up both the SAN and the NAS systems to perhaps a virtual tape library, a VTL, that also may get replicated. And there may be tape in the mix also, and then that tape goes off-site to an Iron Mountain or an off-site vault. And then you may have active archive software that then moves and archives data sets out of the applications into some maybe on-prem object store, which also can get replicated. My point is that there's a lot that goes into effectively managing an on-premise data storage scenario. And we believe that there is a much cleaner way to do this. If you take a look at all these different silos of block and file and archival and backup and off-site situations, it's a lot to take into consideration. So we have this strategy that we call next generation enterprise storage, and we've really broken down this concept into 5 pillars. So you'll see block, file, archive, backup, and DR are the storage pillars. And then what we've done is within those pillars, we have essentially collected a very large group of ISVs that can help us address those particular spaces and those particular technology functions or use cases. So the idea here is that the top bar is the customer data center. And instead of a customer purchasing a large NAS, for example, that may fill many racks with lots of disk and disk shelves, etc., You can now buy a gateway technology, and a gateway can come in the form of software. It can come in the form of, which Oxygen Cloud comes in the form of software. It can come in the form of a hardware appliance. It can come in the form of a virtual appliance. It can be a driver. A gateway can come in many different forms. So if I take a NAS example, take this hardware device that you see here, this rack mount system, and it may be a 1U or 4U, maybe even a 6U device that sits in the customer data center instead of filling up multiple racks of disk. This device will become your primary on-prem file system, again, in the case of NAS. This is just one example. It will snapshot all data sets from that local disk cache into S3, and then you'll have constant snapshots in S3, which is your backup. So not only do you have your primary NAS system now in this gateway, but you have snapshots that are changing all versions and maintaining them all in S3, which enables you to get rid of backup software, backup hardware, tape, offsite tape, Iron Mountain, etc. It's very compelling. These devices also do deduplication, compression, encryption. You own and manage the keys. By the time the data gets to Amazon, it's a scrambled blob, binary blob. There's no attack vectors. And there's also WAN acceleration enabled between Amazon and these systems as well. So they do intelligent tiering and caching. You have local acknowledgments done locally, and then we're flushing old data sets out to S3. We're snapping data sets, which is your backup, and all your remote copies and gold copies are in the cloud, which effectively can be your remote DR and business continuity copy. So you end up eliminating remote data centers from those data sets, the entire backup environment, the entire archive environment, because there's tiering built in, and now what you have is a small device that sits in your data center with S3 or Glacier or some sort of object backend as the backend data store. So a tremendous operational savings. So you can see across the bottom here in the orange, these are effectively the benefits where if you implement a SAN or NAS gateway, you're massively reducing the on-prem footprint. And then for the remainder of the components to the right, archive, backup, DR, etc., you literally eliminate the need for all the rest of that because the cloud and the operating system in those gateways enables the rest of it in a much more effective, much cleaner manner. So the other component to consider is that once you get the data into AWS, data has gravity. Proximity processing is another term that I love, because we have lots of different systems in AWS that enables organizations and our customers to bring more value, to pull more value out of the solution. So for example, we have different analytics platforms, we have data warehousing platforms, we just came out with our own transcoding service, we do content delivery, there's a whole bunch of functions that we do on the back end, and when all your data is in the cloud, you never have to migrate it again, and you can actually move your data to those systems and be able to process against them without ever building out or making any major capital investment for any of these systems that you would typically have to on-prem. Finally, the benefits. So I won't read point by point, but the idea here is that you end up removing a tremendous amount of hardware, software, and overall complexity from the equation, which obviously makes a huge impact from a financial perspective. Operationally, you massively streamline your operation, and ultimately what happens is that you end up enabling IT to become more of an innovator. And one of the most innovative solutions that we have in our portfolio is with Oxygen Cloud. Oxygen Cloud is a private enterprise file synchronization tool that has been a longtime partner with AWS. And with that, I would like to introduce Leo Leung.
Great. Thanks a lot, John. This is Leo Leung. I'm the VP of Product for Oxygen Cloud, and thanks so much for spending time with us today. I will not have as many cool icons as John did, but I'll do my best with the slides we have. So Oxygen has been around for a bit. We're actually serving a number of enterprises around the globe already, really across every single vertical you can imagine. So this is a very, very horizontal use case and a horizontal solution, and actually a fundamental challenge that businesses have had for a long time. So what I'll do today is I'll go through just a handful of slides and really dig into a demo to show you how the technology works and how it can work for you. A little bit of context setting is, as John said, there's a lot of changes happening, both in terms of users and how they interact with technology, as well as the infrastructure itself, which is what Amazon represents. Right in front of you, I'm sure you're seeing that there's more and more devices that you have, as well as your coworkers. In fact, a lot of surveys say that in the U.S., people already are bringing to work more than 2 devices. Over 70% of people, 50% of people have over 3 devices. So they're juggling all these tools, but they're dealing fundamentally with an infrastructure that was never meant to support it. So some of the stuff John highlighted earlier, when you're dealing with on-premise storage and kind of network-attached storage, that it was never meant for these new devices, these new personal computing devices such as tablets and phones. What's happened as a result is that users, because they have access to the App Store, to Google Play, etc., it's very easy to go get an application that lets you synchronize your data into a service. Pull all that work content, put it into one of these consumer-type clouds, and certainly as a user you get what you need, right, which is access to that content on any of your devices, whether you're in the office or not. Whether it's your personal device or something that the company gave you, you have that access. And that's what users are looking for. Certainly that's what our customers are looking for when it comes to both the end users and the organizations themselves. And what we believe is there is a new model to support these new personal computers. It cannot be the classic file sharing or file services product. It also cannot be a web portal. It has to be something new that satisfies both the end user and IT. And with Amazon, we're also able to take advantage of some of the powerful infrastructure that Amazon provides, in addition to leveraging some of your own on-premise infrastructure. And I'll get into that right now. So we call our product an enterprise cloud drive. And the key point there is when you think about this tool, it is going to look like a home drive or a home directory or a network drive, something that most users understand, and certainly from an IT management perspective is also very understandable. So that's sort of the frame that I want you guys to keep in mind as you're going through through the presentation. The difference is you're not constrained to your own network. You're not constrained to your PC. You can use any device to access this content, to access this cloud drive. There is a container model around the drive. This is not a tool that just synchronizes and makes copies willy-nilly. It lets you, as IT, control the content that's in that container. And then finally, there's very deep, rich integration with infrastructure. And I don't mean basic access controls or stuff like that. We're really getting into the infrastructure, both from the cloud side as well as the IT infrastructure side. Things like Active Directory, things like even local storage, we can tightly integrate into an IT environment so that, again, you strike that balance. Users get that any device type of access, IT gets the control they need to run the business. So on the user side and the access side, we've spent a lot of time, and we continue to spend time making that tool very, very easy. Right? So there is no break in the workflow. You're just opening up your desktop, you're opening up the Oxygen drive, and you're just working in that space where there is no separate out-of-band process to go into a browser, to download content, to find that content. All that stuff is eliminated with Oxygen. In addition, you have the mobile environment. So as more and more tools are available in the tablets and smartphones to start not only reviewing content but starting to work on that content, Oxygen provides that cloud drive in those environments as well. Again, easy access and container model. And then finally, this is not meant to be just a single user type environment. Certainly you can use it that way, and it's a great single user multi-device type of environment across thousands of users. But you can also think of it as, again, that kind of network drive metaphor where you can share across multiple people and all their devices. So there's a lot of power there, and when I get into the demo, I'll show you that when you think about Oxygen, you need to be able to do both these contexts to be able to support a large business. When it comes to the data control piece, as I said, we do follow this kind of container model where we're not satisfied with just encryption or protection on the wire, which is what most solutions out there offer today. but also the control and the security within the storage. So in the Amazon cloud, we're packaging and encrypting that content before putting it into the cloud, and on the endpoint device. So very few, basically no solutions in the market except for us, also control that endpoint, protect it, and enable IT to go into that endpoint device and still have control over that data. We have the user and device permissions and controls, not only at the individual level but at the group level. Not only at the user level, but also leveraging concepts like Active Directory groups. Again, very focused on business and enterprise use. And then finally, there is the visibility to go back and understand what users have been doing, what administrators have been doing for compliance type purposes. So really, really end-to-end thinking in terms of data control. And then finally, the infrastructure integration piece. So again, very, very unique in the market, where we do allow businesses to use their own Active Directory or LDAP systems to authenticate users and provide that layer of user management, centralized user management that IT is used to. IT is used to managing not only our application, but a whole set of applications through that tool. It's a key integration point that we have there. Secondly, the cloud storage aspect. So as John highlighted, there's great advantages to using Amazon cloud storages, a lot of benefits there. We integrate with that. We let you control basically the entry point into there. We let you manage those credentials, so it will be your own Amazon account that you're storing into. So those additional layers of control around the credentials, around identity, around the data are things that you will not see with other vendors. Finally, if you are in a transition point or if you have other content that you feel like you need to be on-prem or you want to leverage on-premise storage, we support that as well. In the same account, you can have Amazon Cloud Storage, your NAS device, a file server, object storage. We support many, many platforms that I won't get into, but giving you that tremendous flexibility in terms of both data management, data placement, some of the benefits John mentioned in terms of cloud storage, or if you're more familiar with a capitalization model around your technology, we support that as well, all in one product. A little bit of architecture. I hope you can see the tiny icons here, but it is sort of a hybrid model where we support inside and outside the firewall type of access across all these devices, Windows, Mac, iPad, iPhone, and Android, and future devices certainly to come. We route that data from wherever the device is so that we're authenticating against, again, your Active Directory or LDAP. We do not see those credentials, only you maintain them and you control them. That is unique in the marketplace. Once those users and devices are authenticated against the system, we then route them to the appropriate storage connector. These connectors, storage connector and authentication connector in the picture, are virtual appliances. We support many different types of virtualization environments. And again, it gives you, as the enterprise, flexibility in terms of how you want to deploy them, how you want to support availability, where you want to deploy them, et cetera. We found that virtual appliances are something that IT groups like a lot. Once the devices are authenticated against that system, we route it to the appropriate storage connector and then push or pull that data out of Amazon Web Services. That's the model in terms of the authentication and identity flow. The cloud on your left is, again, that hybrid notion. We do provide application services through the cloud, so that when we add new features, for example, there is no big patch update cycle that you have to manage as an IT organization. We are able to scale the application. So as people are using the management interface or they're using our web client to access content, incredible elasticity and scale available in that cloud infrastructure. So the goal here is to provide really the best of both worlds. The scalability of the cloud and the ability to just receive updates, get client updates, et cetera, very low touch from a management perspective and a maintenance perspective, but have the control through the key points that you would want as an enterprise. That identity control through Active Directory and the data control through the storage connector. So how do customers use Oxygen? So the use cases are many, but again, we believe this is a very, very horizontal solution and a problem that frankly has been around for a long time. How do you get users the content they need? There's been a lot of attempts to try to provide that answer, and frankly a lot of failures from a technology perspective. We follow the model, again, of a drive, a home drive, a cloud drive, a network drive, where you can get access to that content no matter where you are. So this very simple use case around the ability to just get to your corporate content very, very easily no matter what device you're using. A lot of our customers need it just for that. A lot of customers have large field sales forces or services organizations, et cetera, where people are remote, people are not in the corporate office, or they're in branch offices. There's been a lot of attempts to try to deploy technology there. We believe we have a great solution to get content into the field. So whether you're in insurance and you're doing insurance servicing like Aetna, whether you're doing consulting like an Accenture or a Wipro, whether you're just doing sales of technology, right? There is this interaction between corporate and remote resources that frankly to date has not necessarily been the best in terms of technology solutions. We're supporting many of our customers in that use case. Then finally, there's just a simple notion of storage, right? When you're an individual that needs to store content across multiple devices, there are consumer solutions that support this in your personal life. We believe we're the best solution for businesses and individuals that need to access content or store content either for themselves across devices or across many users. So at this point, I'm going to walk into a demo. I'm going to switch into presentation mode, so please give me a second. Okay, I'm watching a screen to see if it shows up. Okay, there it is. Great. So here's my desktop. In this case, I'm using a Mac machine. Sorry for you Mac haters out there. And again, it looks just like a simple drive. Right? So here's my Oxygen drive, and here's a bunch of folders and files. So just like your desktop, I'm able to get in there and start working. So if I wanted to pull up a presentation, just double-click. Right? And this can be my own environment or it can be a shared environment. So right now, actually let me quickly pop over to my iPad. You can see it. So you can see here that that view that I have here on the right side of my Mac desktop is reflected on the mobile device. And if I wanted to pull up a piece of content, I just tap. Oops. And authenticate. Take that off the screen for a second. And show you a Windows environment. Same kind of deal while I authenticate.
Hey, Leo, I just want to make sure. I'm not seeing it. I just want to make sure the rest of the audience is.
Hey, John, it's working fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Hold on one second. Okay, apologies about that. So again, my iPad is on the screen and it's reflecting the content that's available on my desktop as well. For the viewers out there, if probably the best way to do it is if you're still having trouble getting into the presentation, into the screencast, there is a link to click in your browser, and then make sure it's full screen so you can see the entire desktop. Thank you. Okay, so bottom line is there's reflection into your mobile devices so that things you put into your desktop environment will be available on your mobile device as well. If you want to view things in your mobile environment, it's as simple as touching the item, and it will present there. Things that you update can be made available on your mobile device that simply, inside the network or outside. Okay, now I'm going to quickly show a different user. So here I have on the left side a different user. There's a multi-user account. And in this case, I have a folder that I'm sharing. So this marketing folder. Same content in both sides. Okay? So this is a user number 1. Left side is user number 2. Let's say I go edit something. I save it into that environment, and on the other side, you see that it's automatically synchronizing for this particular shared content. You could pop open Word, and there it is. All right, so one of the key points here is that, again, single user or multi-user. In that case, I was automatically synchronizing content, but I don't have to. So with a lot of tools out there, you'll see that they just sync everything, right? The assumption is there's not a lot of content. I should be able to synchronize it. It doesn't matter what device I have. It's fine. But in an enterprise context, again, when you're thinking about a shared drive or a network drive, there could be a tremendous amount of content. There could be terabytes of content. You do not want a tool that will automatically synchronize everything into your device without regard. Our model is a selective sync model. So with your own content, absolutely. You can. The default is it automatically synchronizes and is available. With shared content, if I go into this larger folder of 1,000 items, these are just references to the content. So if you think about that, again, that analogy of a network drive, you're not pulling everything out of that network drive into your local environment to work with it. But you are able to look and see and find things you need and be able to hit them, double-click them, and enter that piece of content. That's what our shared experience feels like. More like a network drive, but again, available wherever you are. Let me get a little bit into the control aspect of Oxygen. So again, this is on the left side is a regular user, on the right side is an admin user. I'm going to bring in our management environment. Okay, and this is a web console that lets you look at content. So this is the admin view, again, reflects all that content online. But it gives a whole set of additional controls for the enterprise. So as I said, I have user-based controls to give specific permissions to users. I have group controls where I can grant specific privileges to additional users. So it doesn't have to be IT only managing this tool. I can extend administration privileges to user managers where they can, again, provide different levels of sharing, the ability to add outside users into an environment. All those kinds of things can be done at the group level. There's additional controls at the space level, these individual shared folders that I just showed you. There's a tremendous amount of controls in terms of access. So not only just open and close types of access, but How long do you want the setting to be before people have to log back in? Are you more concerned with the mobile environment or the web environment, where you want that re-authentication over a period of time? Do you want to enable additional controls or additional access into the system through a technology like WebDAV? Do you want to seal off the system so that only devices that are authorized can enter the system? A huge amount of controls that we provide to give you that flexibility, because every industry is different in terms of how tightly they want to regulate access and sharing, or if they want to leave it relatively unregulated and be able to audit later. That's another key feature of Oxygen, that flexibility and the balance between usability and security. One other thing here I'll show is, currently the system is connected to the Amazon cloud. But again, it's very simple to add additional Amazon accounts or on-premise infrastructure for that kind of storage flexibility. So quick demo in terms of control. Again, here I am in the Windows environment, and again, it just looks like my desktop. I'm not in a browser. I'm not in some type of widget or something. It's just my desktop, just the way I work. But from an IT perspective, I'm able to look into that shared content and see, hey, there's this Leo guy that, has write permissions into the marketing folder, but in truth, he's no longer part of marketing, or he's moved on into a different business unit. I'm going to remove his access to that content. And if you look over here, you'll see that instantly, in that desktop environment, I as IT have reached in and removed access to content. Okay? So very, very powerful. This is the big difference, and it's maybe a little bit subtle before you use the product, but that ability to reach right into that environment, that control all the way into the endpoint, is unique in the industry. Okay, so that's actually the topics I wanted to cover. I did want to leave a little bit of time for questions. Actually, let me flip back to the slides. And talk about a special offer that we have today. We believe that this is the way the market's going to go. We believe that this is the solution that you guys have been looking for to both really satisfy your users' demand for access as well as give you the control you need. So today we're offering a package of Enterprise Cloud with unlimited users for free, as well as 250 gigabytes of Amazon storage for free. All you have to do is contact us. We're really eager to talk to you about what you're trying to do, some of your use cases, and how we can help solve them. Just hit us at marketing@oxygencloud.com, and we have the proverbial people waiting on the other line to respond. With that, I'll turn it back over to Sherry, and we'll take any questions you have.
Thanks, Leo, and thanks, John, for providing us with some key insights today, solutions to help customers get quickly set up and fully authenticated and secure their storage in the cloud. So I'd like to invite folks that if you've joined kind of midstream, there is a Q&A functionality in your browser. Please feel free to submit questions. We'll take some time to open that up now. So the first question, I'm going to point back to you, Leo. Can you speak to what kind of compliance and does Oxygen support? Maybe speak to PCI or HIPAA in terms of the compliance. And John, you can jump in as well from an Amazon perspective.
Great, thanks for that question. So we have a number of customers both in the healthcare space as well as the financial industries. So we, through our architecture and through the way we handle data, really resemble more of a private infrastructure. Right? So all the control points are still owned by the enterprise. Therefore, we satisfy a lot of the compliance needs that enterprises already have. In addition, we have very rich auditing capabilities to plug into your audit infrastructure, where again you can start to satisfy some of the minimum requirements in terms of being able to look very specifically at granular actions of users or administrators to go get back into that data to satisfy compliance, as well as the real-time nature of it. So we're able to actually provide audit information near real-time, again, so that you can respond to any type of compliance infractions that you may encounter. And this is on top of AWS's very, very rich infrastructure in terms of highly audited, highly compliant platform.
Right, and from an AWS perspective, we have SOC 1, SSA 16, ISCA 3402 certification, SOC 2, FISMA, ITAR compliance, PCI DSS Level 1, ISO 27001, FIPS 140-2, and a variety of others. And all of these certifications are in reports and independent attestations that are available publicly to all of you. And all of those individual certifications are rolled up through all AWS products. So whatever you bolt in, like Oxygen Cloud, for example, you bolt into your AWS account, all of those certifications and security features, many of which I haven't spoken of, are all provided to the customer at no cost.
Terrific. Thanks, John and Leo. I'm going to point this question back to you, Leo. Can you share with us how Oxygen compares with other web portals?
Sure. So that's one of the fundamental differences. We're not a web portal. A lot of products out there, frankly, have been around for about a decade. Their architecture is based on a web architecture, which means that everything is in a stack. Data, authentication, application are all one thing. Right? They're monolithic. Therefore, it's very hard for them to actually support the flexibility that we support. Secondly, and maybe more importantly, is because of that kind of architecture where everything is all together and data has to flow through their system, the way to get access has to be through the web portal. And you have to get into that system. There may be widgets to help, alleviate some of that pain, but you got to go through the browser. You got to navigate it, that environment. Then you have to download that content onto your desktop or device. And once you've done that, it is not controlled anymore by that service, right? So it may be a little bit subtle, but if you saw it in the demo, you can't do what we do, which is right now with Oxygen, you can work on the content. There's no interruption to what you're doing day to day, but IT can still go in there and shut off access. With a web portal, once it's downloaded, it's in the clear. It's unprotected. And if that device is compromised or your account is compromised, that's it. The content's out. Additionally, when you think about web portals and the integrations they have to other types of services, because of that architecture, it is not a controlled environment. So if you're using a SaaS kind of editing application or productivity application, copies are created out of that portal into other tools. So again, the web portal, products like Box, products like ShareFile, no longer have control over that content. We do. We have a web access into the system for people that some customers have demanded that in case they do not have their own device or very, very specific use cases where they need a web portal. But we actually offer the ability to turn that off so that you have a fully containerized model with our clients. So big differences there.
Great. Thanks, Leo, for clarifying that. Next question, I'm going to point this back to you, Leo, as well. Can software applications be stored and accessed in Oxygen? The question sort of is around specifically, is it restricted? Is there software needing a key to access?
Sure. So on the desktop, we basically look like a file system to applications. So as long as you have, if you're authorized to use Oxygen, so that's one way to think about it. If you're authorized to use that drive, then applications are able to access that data. If you're not authorized to use the drive, again, this is only true of a container model, then even those desktop applications can't get access to the data. Whereas with 99% of the other solutions out there, once it's synced into your local environment, there is zero control from an application perspective. I would say additionally, we do have integration points into Oxygen, so perhaps some of the folks on the call are thinking about more custom applications. In those cases, you have even more control over how you want to provide keys or API keys into those applications. We do have a full SDK for Java and Objective-C to allow people to connect custom applications to the Oxygen environment.
Great. I'm going to point this next question back to you, John. One of the sort of the bottlenecks, I guess, for sending a lot of data across the network, when it comes to bandwidth, is this gentleman's question is, how's Amazon addressing from a cost perspective when it comes to bandwidth versus increased capacity and cost?
Great question. Okay, so Amazon, so there's multiple ways to get content in. There's over the internet, obviously. There's another service we have called Direct Connect, which enables customers to take their existing carrier lines and terminate point-to-point or MPLS onto physical routers that we have stood up at different points of presence around the world. So you can establish a completely private, low latency, higher throughput connection into AWS while avoiding the internet. So there's internet, there's Direct Connect, and then there's a third option that we have called import-export, which is the physical shipment of drives and arrays and physically manned stations that we can rapidly spin data in and rapidly spin data out to get off the platform. So those are the three options. Now, when you're looking at an application such as Oxygen Cloud, perhaps the appliances may sit in your data center, and there may either be a connection into AWS from the appliances, most typically via internet. Any sort of inbound bandwidth into S3 is free over a pipe. Your bandwidth charges from an Amazon perspective is when you start getting bandwidth out of S3. So if the outbound connection to a customer data center, for example, is over Direct Connect, we actually drastically reduce the prices. I don't know the exact reduction, but I believe it's like at least a 30% reduction in outbound bandwidth pricing. If it's going over the internet out of S3 back towards a user or a consumer, we have a tiered data transfer out from Amazon S3 to internet model. On aws.amazon.com, if you navigate towards the Amazon S3 page, you'll see pricing models right in the middle of that particular web page, of the Amazon S3 web page. And you'll see that from the first gig per month, it doesn't cost anything to get data out. Anything after the first gig, up to 10 terabytes, it's 12 cents per gig per month. Up to the next 40 terabytes beyond the first 10, so for the next 30, you're looking at 9 cents per gig. And as you increase bandwidth out, the costs go down from a scale perspective. So there's the cost of your ISP or your carrier. Inbound bandwidth is free. Outbound bandwidth is a tiered model, and this is all outlined on the pricing page. And you'll also see a calculator that is just above the pricing scheme where you can actually model this out. There's also one final component of requests. So requests would be the API calls such as get, puts, post, deletes from a particular application. And all application profiles as it relates to these requests are different. But 99% of the time, it's a very, very small charge. You're looking at 0.000 something % of your overall monthly charge for the requests. So the real cost is involved in the storage, which is the gigabytes consumed per month, plus the bandwidth out charge, which also is typically a very small fraction of the overall monthly cost.
I would add quickly to that, John, that if you think about Oxygen, we are a distributed caching model. right? So maybe a little bit different from what John highlighted earlier in terms of other gateways. So what we've seen in terms of consumption patterns is that this is why we do selective sync, and we don't sync everything to every user. Obviously, when you have a lot of content, that would start to create a huge amount of traffic. Instead, in these shared environments, we selectively sync. So things you need, you download. Once you download it, it's actually in the local cache of your device. You can view it, you can work on it, and you can use it for quite a while before you need to then, again, touch the storage or reach over the network to get an update, etc. So that model in and of itself actually, from our experience, when you're dealing with user content, actually consumes less bandwidth than a more classic kind of cloud gateway, cache everything type of model.
Great. We have time for just a couple more questions, and if we don't get to your questions, be assured that we'll follow up with you directly after the webinar. I'm going to point this back to you, Leo, in terms of this gentleman's asking if he's already got he already has a local SAN storage in his data center that houses all his VMs and data. How would he cleanly migrate his data to Oxygen on Amazon?
So it certainly depends on how much content. We've done a lot of work essentially to make our clients be able to handle a huge amount of content. So we do not have currently a plugin to shift or repoint the content within the SAN infrastructure. There does have to be a migration, but the migration can be very quick, and we can handle a huge amount of content through our clients. So we see this kind of scenario a lot. We would essentially work with the customer to migrate those users onto the Oxygen platform, and we can do it at big chunks at a time, meaning tens of thousands of files, many gigabytes of content at a time.
Great. So maybe you could follow up with him afterwards, and you two could talk through his specific scenario. So and just in closing, we've got a couple questions around sort of version control. In terms of using Oxygen, one question specifically asked is, what's the possibility of version management? And the other person asked, what if multiple people access the same file, make changes? How does that work in the Oxygen tool?
Thanks for that question. So currently, it does again resemble a mounted drive. So the last writer would win when there's multiple writes to the system. We're currently working in the very near term on content versioning, where basically everything that comes into the system is saved and retrievable. But currently, the model is last writer wins when it comes to multiple users working on the same exact piece of content.
All right, terrific. Well, I'd like to special thanks to you, Leo, for joining us today, and for John, both of you providing a great presentation and a demo of the Oxygen Cloud